Welcome back to Tarot by the Bay. I'm David. Record this on November 21st on my lunch break from work. What do we have here? Back to the James Comey case. For those keeping score at home, James Comey is being indicted by the Department of Justice on charges, I believe, that he lied on testimony to Congress, something like that. Regardless, the original prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia, I believe it was, declined to bring charges up against James Comey because they found insufficient evidence to do so. As the statute of limitations were running out, this is when Trump sent what was supposed to be a DM that got posted for public viewing on Truth Social, the one that says, Pam, what's going on with, James Comey, Letitia James, and Adam Schiff? These folks need to be prosecuted. And then soon afterwards, Letitia James and James Comey were prosecuted. The original attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia wouldn't bring up the charges, so they replaced him with Lindsay Halligan, who was an insurance attorney that worked on Trump's legal team, the same legal team that Trump says, I may not have, I may not have the best lawyers, but I got the best looking legal team around because she's an attractive woman. So somebody who has no prosecutorial experience, not even a criminal lawyer, she's an insurance lawyer, was now put in charge of trying to get an indictment against James Comey, and got that indictment from the grand jury just like on a Friday, and on a Monday the statute of limitations was going to run out. So she was just jammed in there. One of the first problems with that is the way the law was set up. The previous attorney that was in there was appointed by the DOJ. You only get one shot at it. After that, the next person appointed had to be approved by like a 3-judge panel or a multi-judge panel within that state. And the DOJ circumvented that and just put their own replacement in there to force this thing through. So that's another one of the things that Comey's arguing, his lawyers are arguing to get the charges dismissed. Anyways, the judge found out that the original 3-count indictment, the grand jury did not agree to charge on one of the counts. So what needed to happen, from my understanding, is the Department of Justice needed to create a new indictment with just the 2 counts the grand jury would indict on, submit that to the full grand jury, and then they would approve that. That's the process. What they did was apparently Photoshop out the first charge, and then the Department of Justice gave it to the foreman and allegedly one other grand jury member there. Mind you, there's more than 2 people in a full grand jury. And then it was signed at that point. I'm not a lawyer, but I do work in a regulated industry, and the lawyers basically say you can't do that, and I can appreciate the gravity of this. When the judge had asked for additional information, including like the transcripts of the grand jury, the judge noted there was a real problem here, and they weren't quite getting the full straight story. So they got all the grand jury stuff, read through it, and then understood what happened, called up a lawyer for the DOJ, and then eventually Lindsay Halligan herself to question them. And basically, these folks acknowledged that they had never presented the updated indictment to the full grand jury. This is one of those things that's so basic, so fundamental, that you may not even question it, because it's like, no, duh, of course you have to do that. But she doesn't know what she's doing. This is the type of thing that could get this case tossed out. It might say, oh, it's a technicality. Dude, you got to play the game by the rules. There is a process with which you do things. There's other things that she did also. This is just one of, this just happens to be the most egregious as far as, not caring about the normal processes and just doing whatever the heck you want, which can work in the White House, I suppose, but it doesn't hold water in the courts or any highly regulated agency. And I work in a very regulated profession. And if we were to do that, it gets better. I'll get back to that story in a second. So today, the Department of Justice filed a new document. It's called a Notice for Correcting the Record, and they filed it on Thursday. Excuse me, not today. I record this on Friday. In the document, Halligan wrote that any assertion that the grand jury never, quote, never voted on the 2-count indictment, unquote, is contradicted by the official transcript, quote, declaring the record leaves no room for ambiguity. And she described the situation as a clerical inconsistency related only to the first count that was nixed, insisting the surviving Comey indictment is valid. The article goes on to say, which I described, the day prior, on Wednesday, both Halligan and U.S. Attorney Tyler Lemons said the full grand jury hadn't reviewed the final indictment, only the foreperson and a second grand juror. Instead of presenting a new indictment to the full panel after it rejected the counts, the grand jury foreperson signed an updated version unreviewed by the others. When asked directly by the judge whether the final indictment is a document that was never shown to the entire grand jury, Lemons, the district attorney, said he wasn't there, but that was his understanding. Comey's lawyers want to get it tossed out for that. So now the DOJ is coming back saying, oh, no, just a clerical error. Okay. Having worked in a regulated industry, this is like being audited by a health authority, and they ask you something and they catch you out on a problem. Something you filed with the regulatory agencies, and you have to admit that you did some shortcuts and what you submitted wasn't accurate. And you've now admitted it to the inspector that's there. You come back the next day and say, oh, wait a minute. That's not true. We found this. It's just a clerical error. First off, that inspector is going to be confused and they're going to be angry because now they don't know what the story is. Yesterday, you were admitting that you cut corners and didn't do things right. Today, now you're saying, no, ignore what we told you yesterday. Now we're saying we're fine. First off, it makes you look like an idiot. Because you don't know what's going on. You don't know your head from a hole in the ground. And that's not the term I want to use. And what's going on here? How come you're telling me this one day and this the next day? This doesn't make any sense. That inspector is going to be livid, and they're going to want the whole story. They're going to want all the information, and they're going to take you to task for it. And they still may not believe you at the end of the day, because now it seems like you're trying to pull the wool over their eyes, and they don't like that. Auditors do not like that, not even a little bit. You can imagine what a judge is going to say. And this is not like the judge that was on the Paul Manafort case, or Judge Cannon, where they're like so willing to believe Manafort or willing to believe Trump that they will ignore anything that is presented as evidence to the contrary. We don't have that judge in this case for Comey. Okay, long intro. Let's get to cards. Let's look at the energy around the DOJ's latest attempt to salvage this case against Comey. How's the energy looking? How is this panning out? Entertainment purposes only. Here we go. Page of Pentacles. Coming up with the new information. Now, messaging about new evidence, new information. Remember, the page is the youngest card. This makes you look like you aren't a seasoned pro. This is making you look like a rank amateur. Crossed with the Two of Cups. And underneath is the Four of Swords. After sitting on it for a day, you come up with this new explanation. Who did you talk to that presented this information that you couldn't get the story straight the first time? Remember, I just mentioned Judge Cannon. It really appeared that Judge Cannon was getting guidance from some lawyers or judges in the Heritage Foundation and on the Supreme Court. And when I first read this story, that was the first thing that came to mind was, this reminds me of Judge Cannon and who's been talking to the DOJ trying to get this story straight. This has all the hallmarks and that same vibe of somebody behind the scenes saying, here's how you can potentially get out of this problem. Basically coaching. Things that are hidden that weren't known being revealed, type of thing. In the past, speaking of which, you get the Three of Coins here. I think this coaching has been ongoing for a while. And I think when this, and mind you, this is the past, this is the present. I think somebody came in and coached Halligan and these attorneys on their screw up and how to salvage this case. Current situation is the Fool card. Halligan and the DOJ have nothing to lose, well, other than the reputation, of course, and her law license and so on and so forth. But as far as this case goes, they have nothing to lose except your reputation, because you could walk right off the cliff with this thing. Sometimes it's just better to lick your wounds and let it go. But Trump doesn't want them to let it go. And Halligan has hitched her wagon to Donald Trump and Pam Bondi here. Overarching energy is the Justice card. The judge is looking at this and seeing the improprieties of it. Mind you, this isn't the only impropriety. It's just one of many. And any one of those things could unhinge this case. Some are stronger than others. This quote-unquote clerical error actually is one of the strongest things to unhinge this case. The other is that that Halligan isn't even qualified to be a prosecutor and was illegally put in there, and that it's a malicious prosecution because Trump is going after Comey, amongst other things. The battery, and also apparently there was a memo written for the DOJ saying not to prosecute this case, and the judge asked about that memo, and the lawyers for the DOJ said they weren't allowed to talk about the existence of that memo. Any one of those things could do it. When you start adding the sum total of all those things, you know, the burden of proof, the weight of evidence, literally, those scales there are weighing the evidence. And right now, those scales are not even. I assure you, they are not even. It looks like the court system's going to hold up in this one. The lesson to be learned, the King of Cups. The judge being even keeled or Donald Trump having emotional meltdowns both play a role in this case. Trump absolutely wants Comey indicted and prosecuted. And Pam Bondi, Lindsay Halligan are willing to make fools out of themselves in order to appease this person. The judge can rule on this non-emotionally. He doesn't have to be a pro-Trumper or an anti-Trumper on this one. All he has to do is follow the law and see the Keystone Cops aspect of the DOJ investigation. Outcome is the Four of Cups. The judge isn't buying it. The judge is not buying it. The judge is not happy. The judge does not like the explanations being given. Let's dive in, shall we? Um, let's look at the energy of the DOJ. Why did the DOJ suddenly feel the need to file this? I mean, we know why. They want to prosecute Comey, but what's the energy behind this this updated memo saying, "Oh, it's all good. We don't have to worry about this problem. It's just merely a clerical error." Little four Carter. Let's get just a little bit more background in that one, because they know the case is going to get tossed out. This is a last ditch effort. We got the Ten of Coins, the Knight of Wands, the Three of Swords, and the High Priestess. I think Bondi and Halligan know they're in trouble. And they could even be disbarred. I think they absolutely understand that. And if they're not disbarred, Trump will kick them out. So they have to come up with a plan to try and create a pedigree. But the problem is that they're not being truthful. They've already hung themselves basically with this. They've hung themselves with this. Trump wants Comey out. That's part of the plan. He's somebody with some more smarts is trying to help them with the plan here to maybe keep them in instead of being kicked out, keeping them included. But it's disingenuous. That Three of Swords just tells me that it's not following the rules or the spirit of the law or anything along those lines. It's a betrayal of ethics. Okay. The judge. How is the judge viewing this case currently? Given the latest that's going on, how is the judge viewing this case? Especially this latest. Oh, God. I got the Ten of Swords here popping up. And the Four of Wands. That tells me it's ending and being tossed out. The judge is going to end this thing. He's going to toss it out. How's the judge feeling? I think we've already cut to the chase, but I'm curious how the judge is going to look at this. Wheel of Fortune. Tell me more. No. Oh, I'm almost like, oh, I can't wait to hear this. This is going to be great. The judge is going to have even more questions. Four of Coins. The Chariot. The Victory. And the same Four of Swords underneath it before. The judge is going to continue questioning with this case. Now, this could be like the case is going to continue forward right now. So I think that from the judge's point of view, they're going to listen to this latest argument, this latest submission on it. And they're going to ask, is there any more evidence, like that memo, can I see, what about this memo? They're going to want more information here. What other information are you hiding? What other stuff are you not telling me? The judge right now is keeping their opinion close to their vest. They're following the process, letting the process carry forward because the judge doesn't want their ruling appealed. The judge is being very contemplative and quiet with this. Okay, so back to that justice card I had on the overarching energy before. This judge is not biased. This is not a judge that's pro James Comey. This is not a judge that's pro Donald Trump. This is a judge who is like, okay, let's see what you got. I want to see all the cards on the table before I make my ruling because I don't want my ruling overturned. But with that Ten of Swords and the Four of Wands, I don't translate that to mean that Comey's finished and this court case is going forward. That to me means the judge is going to kick this thing out. All right. Assuming uh, nothing else amazing happens. No more gotcha moments come forward here. Will the judge kick this case out? Two of coins. Diminishing. Going to go through the process. Evaluate the evidence. Does not like what they see. Hermit. The reveal. The more the judge sees of the evidence, the more the judge dislikes what they're seeing. The Two of Coins is about keeping all the balls in the air, which is something that the prosecution has to do. They have to a lot of things that they have to meet, standards that they have to meet, and they dropped the ball on this one. Maybe on multiple fronts. Apparently, Miss Halligan implied that James Comey's not testifying at some trial or some forum could be used against him. You know, his civil rights have been violated, amongst other things. I think the judge is looking at the evidence that's on there. They're going to make a slow, methodical, bulletproof ruling. They don't like what they see is going on right now. And they're going to make sure that the path forward on this one is clear. Their ruling is going to be very clear and unambiguous. Again, as I was flipping through those cards, I also got the Ten of Swords and the Four of Wands. I think that judge is going to dismiss this case. And by dismissing this case, the statute of limitations has run out, and they can no longer bring James Comey up on charges for this offense. That doesn't mean that the DOJ won't come up with some other excuse to bring charges against James Comey, but they will not be able to do it on this one. Thank you very much for watching this video and supporting my channel. I appreciate it. This reading is for entertainment purposes only, but I hope you found it insightful, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.